Torpedo 1972 number 2 sends the aging gangster on a revenge quest to kill the journalist who framed him for murder. We'll have the review right here. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is a review of Torpedo 1972 number 2 from Ablaze Publishing. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. Your attention is greatly appreciated, and make sure you stay tuned through the end for the final score. Let's talk about the credits. This issue is written by Enrique Sanchez Abuli, art by Eduardo Rizzo, who also did the colors and the main cover, cover A, and letters are provided by Vibrant Studios. Before we dig into the issue, let's recap what happened in issue number 1. Torpedo is an aging gangster living in New York City. He's approached by a Wall Street Journal journalist by the name of James, and James with his girlfriend Wendy, who is a photographer. He says, I want to do an expose on you to figure out who killed famous gangster Piero Caputo. Torpedo agrees grudgingly, but he says, if you pay me some money, I'll give you all the information you're looking for. He goes through the interview, James writes his piece, and he gets ready to publish it. Meanwhile, Wendy says, hey, you're an aging gangster, you're kind of an interesting kind of character, kind of an interesting kind of cat. Why don't you come over to my photo studio? I'll take some photo pictures of you and they can accompany the expose. While he's at the photography studio with Wendy, things get a little out of hand, or I should say a lot out of hand, when Torpedo sexually assaults Wendy. And then he leaves. Wendy tells James what happened. James decides to alter the expose to make it sound like Torpedo was the one who killed Piero Caputo instead of whoever really killed Piero Caputo. Now we have a scenario where all the gangsters that are related to the Caputo family now think Torpedo is the one that killed their father, and then James purposefully printed an erroneous story to make it look like Torpedo was the bad guy, and he did it out of revenge for his sexually assaulted girlfriend. And that's where we left off with the first issue. Now we pick up in Torpedo 1972 number 2. Torpedo, with his sidekick Rascal, they go to a bar that's like a pool hall where the Caputo family hangs out. And he decides to approach the Caputos to say, hey, I know what that newspaper says. I know what that article is doing. That no good, low down, rotten reporter changed the story and lied about me to say that I killed your father, and I did not. But you got to tell me where that reporter is, because I owe him for printing lies about me and trying to get me framed and trying to get me killed. Somehow or another, because the old man can't seem to take no for an answer, or when the Caputos say, hey, I don't care about the newspaper article, just get out of here, live and let live. It's no big deal. Just forget about it. The Torpedo says, no, you got to tell me where that reporter is, because I owe him for crossing me and double crossing me and telling lies about me. And the argument escalates into a fight, which escalates into a gunfight, with leaving Torpedo and Rascal shooting up the entire place and killing the 3 sons of Piero Caputo and the bartender who is managing the place. They take off, and that now they have no leads, but all the Caputos are now dead. And so now James gets word that the Caputos have been killed, and now he knows that Torpedo might be hunting for him. So he and his girlfriend Wendy decide to make some plans to get together, have a nice dinner, have a nice date, and then in the morning they're going to go take a flight to some other city, so that way they can hide out and let things cool off before they come back. Without leads, Torpedo talks to Rascal and he says, what are we going to do? And Rascal says, why don't we stake out the girlfriend, because James is sure to meet up with her, and then we can follow them together and do what we got to do. So that apparently works. They follow him to a movie theater where they happen to be watching, surprise, surprise, The Godfather, which comes out in 1972. When they leave the movie theater, they split up after James and Wendy have a brief argument. Torpedo follows James into the subway. Rascal follows Wendy down a street and down through a dark alley. Torpedo winds up shooting up the subway platform, killing James, but killing several bystanders in the process. And then they meet up back at Torpedo's apartment, where Rascal says, yep, I killed her. Torpedo doesn't believe him. And lo and behold, no, he did not kill her, because she begged for her life. And then we end the issue with James dead, the Caputo's dead, and Wendy on the run, knowing that Torpedo has to kill her to prevent his his reputation and his secret from getting out regarding his involvement with the Caputos. What did we like about Torpedo 1972 number 2? The story is strange in a weird sort of slightly comedic but black humor kind of way. It's not played for jokes, it's not played for laughs. It's the nature of the relationships, particularly between Torpedo and Rascal. They're so over the top and they're so larger than life that when they're trying to do simple things like hail a cab or get a hot dog or do whatever they want to do, they just treat everything as though it is deadly serious, even when it's not supposed to be. And then their sort of laissez-faire attitude towards killing people, shooting up a pool hall, rape, torture, murder. It's so strange that they just treat this as almost like a daily routine or a daily chore. And it's their attitudes and their behaviors are so over the top that it's almost strangely, wickedly, darkly funny. It's kind of gallows humor in a way. And especially when they start shooting up the pool hall and then they're just killing guys left and right. It's almost comedic. It's weirdly absurd in a surreal kind of way. So it's a very unique tone, very unique story. And Torpedo is not a new character. This isn't the first time this character has shown up. This is just the latest generation of Torpedo comics and stories, and they go back generations. So this is Torpedo 1972. There are many volumes that predate this for the 50s and the 60s prior to 1972. So if you're interested in the character, go back and read those, and you can read Torpedo's exploits in his younger years. But I think this really captures the tone and vibe of those original Torpedo stories. And it's violent and weird and sort of almost comedic in how over the top and big and wild and crazy things get. And so the net effect is it's a very entertaining read in a very dark, surreal kind of way. What didn't we like about Torpedo 1972 number 2? I think the only nitpick that we really have is there is some translations here going on between Italian and English. For the most part, the dialogue is okay. The way the characters interact with each other verbally is generally okay, but there are little turns of phrases and little bits of wording and grammar and word choice that seem a little off. And I think that has something to do with the translation to English. Overall, you don't notice it too much, but there are one or two spots where somebody says something that just doesn't sound right. So other than that, everything else works pretty well. Let's switch gears to talk about the art from Eduardo Rizzo. It looks great. It exactly matches the kind of sort of noir, gritty, grimy, grindhouse type of storytelling that you're looking for, especially for that period of 1972, that early 70s to late 70s. The art style fits exactly that type of storytelling. Plus, that period of time is very much exemplified through the style of hair and clothes and cars and all the environmental and the cultural aspects of the setting. Eduardo Rizzo nails it. The clothes look right for that period. The styles of the men with their mustaches and facial hair and how they're wearing their hairstyles and the types of clothes, even the shoes. There's lots of platform shoes in this issue, which makes sense for that time period because it fits. So art-wise, Eduardo Rizzo nails it. Final thoughts. What did we think? This is an entertaining issue if you're into hyper-violent with a slight comedic edge type of storytelling. Very much in the vein of giallo films. Imagine a giallo film directed by Quentin Tarantino. It's that kind of vibe. It can be grim, it can be dark, it can be very serious, and the subject matter can be very serious. But because the characters are so outlandish and over the top, it's almost funny in the absurdity of it. And so if you like that brand of storytelling, especially with period pieces, this takes place in 1972, this is right up your alley. On the downside, the only off point or down point is there are little blips in the translation to English where the turns of phrases and the way the characters talk sounds a little off. It's not a big deal, but it does take you out in one or two spots. Therefore, we're going to give Torpedo 1972 number 2 from Ablaze Publishing a solid 8.5 out of 10. What do you think about stories like this? Do you like gangster stories that take place in a particular time period? Do you like hyper-violent, over-the-top storytelling with big, larger-than-life characters? Let us know in the comments section. I want to hear your opinion about that. Otherwise, if you like more reviews like this, please stay tuned for more in the outro.